Election day is coming up, but that doesn't mean that millions of Americans have already voted. Actually, it has been estimated that 3 million, apparently 1% of Americans, have already cast their ballots and have submitted their votes for the 2024 general election. I want to focus in here on one state on the early vote here. I want to focus in on Pennsylvania because everything basically hinges on Pennsylvania. If Kamala Harris wins Pennsylvania, she will be president. If Donald Trump wins Pennsylvania, he will most likely be president. Okay, so I want to talk about the early vote margins here and what you should expect to see and look for in this state, okay, going forward, and to see into election day how much early vote needs to be banked for either party for them to feel comfortable about the presidential race and the Senate race. Okay, so I'm looking at this information from a website called votehub.us. It's using all of the voter data that comes in through the Pennsylvania Secretary of State, puts it into a nice website. I'll put it right here. Beautiful package. I love it. As a data scientist, it is awesome to see a project like this come through. It's beautiful. Okay, and they keep track of how many votes come in every single day. And right now, there have been 416,000 votes cast in the state of Pennsylvania. That is 285,000 Democrat ballots that have been submitted and 95,000 Republican ballots that have been submitted, and then 36,000 independent ballots that have been submitted. Okay, so what this means is that there is about a 180,000 vote gap between Republicans and Democrats in the state of Pennsylvania right now. Now, that's normal. Okay, if you're a Republican, don't get too anxious yet. Okay, because Republicans are expected to not vote early. It's been practiced now for a couple years where Democrats are more likely to vote by mail and more likely to vote early. So what this whole game is about building up a huge firewall for the Democratic Party. Okay, the Democrats need to build a firewall before Election Day if they're going to survive and win in the 2024 election. Now, analysts have put two firewalls in place. First is for the Pennsylvania Senate race. In order for Democrats to feel comfortable about Bob Casey Jr. beating McCormick in the Pennsylvania Senate race, Democrats need to have banked around 335,000 votes. Now, that doesn't mean the Democrats are definitely going to win. Okay, that's not what that means. It means they have a better than 50% chance of winning. Okay, now for the presidential race, it's 390,000 votes. Democrats need a firewall of about 390 votes to feel okay that they have a good enough shot of winning the state of Pennsylvania. As we are seeing right now, Democrats are on a good trend of hitting that firewall number. They are currently 50% of the way there, with early voting only having been taken place for a week. Now, we also expect the early vote to increase, okay, as we get closer and closer to the election. And Republicans are more likely to use their right to early vote later in the early voting process. So each daily margin gain may be smaller, but for the Democratic Party, they're trying to get this firewall up to 390,000 votes. And if that happens, Democrats have a really good shot of winning the state of Pennsylvania. Now, where is the majority of the vote coming from? It's actually coming from, obviously, the Democratic vote is coming most from Philadelphia, but Allegheny County, where Pittsburgh is, actually is seeing the most amount of early voting. And that's because Democrats and Republicans are putting in their early votes in that county more than any other. In the rural counties, Republicans still haven't really caught up to the Democrats in those areas, as you'll see in this graph. But again, that's not too much to worry for the Republican Party. Okay, they have they vote much later and closer to the election day. But these are the numbers that we're going to be following. Another really important thing that's been happening recently is the uptick in the early vote of Black women and women in general. The early vote metrics for Black women are up 250% from 2022. Okay, that is a huge increase in the early vote for that demographic. If that holds, if the Democrats are able to keep up that enthusiasm from here until Election Day, they're going to be looking pretty good. But all of this obviously will come down to the few 100,000 voters in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan that will decide the election. But watching this early vote will give us an insight into what's going to be happening.